Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, I am super stoked, super thrilled to be introducing all of you to one of our team members at Mark Fisher Fitness. It is our Director of Possibilities and Growth Coach, M. Morris. What's up, M? How are you?
Hey Meow, I'm good. I'm in the booth here at MFF.
Yeah, for those of you who are watching on video, M's wearing cat ear headphones for first of all because she's at MFF and that's proper work attire, and two, we have a kind of a insulated photo booth, talking booth,
Phone
phone booth. What do
booth?
we call it? I guess phone
Yeah.
booth in our office for like private, quiet conversations because our office is loud as fuck. And so, for those watching on video, that's why M is in a gray felt box. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get to introduce you to the Business of Unicorns world. And people, I'm so excited to give you a glimpse into M's magic. She has been the Director of Possibilities for us for how long now? When did you start in this role?
In this role, it's been about a year and a half.
Only a year and a half. And
I
she's
know.
such a fucking badass. You all will hear it on this podcast. But M has really dove into the world of sales. By the way, that's what our Director of Possibilities is sales director for all of you out there who don't know the MFF lingo. And I'm just excited to pick your brain today, M, and expose the world to your magic. And so to get the ball rolling, can you just talk a little bit about how did you find yourself wearing cat ear headphones as the Director of Possibilities at Mark Fisher Fitness?
It was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
fell down a rabbit hole. I live in New York and was doing theater. And by default, for anyone who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know, if you are in the theater community in New York City, you know about Mark Fisher Fitness. So I've heard about how magical and wonderful this place was. I'd been to a couple of MFF parties to like meet people,
Mm-hmm.
and then found out there was a part-time front desk position available. And I thought, yeah, I would do part-time at the front desk and like get free workouts, become a
Yep.
unicorn. And I immediately drank the Kool-Aid. I just immediately fell in love with the passion of everyone who worked here, the values and the mission here of just like helping people find their best lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really struck a chord with me. And I started doing some part-time sales stuff right before the old pandemic of
Mm-hmm.
2020. And
Yep.
then obviously with everyone got furloughed and kind of found myself doing other things. And then Mark Fisher Fitness pivoted to online classes right away. The
Mm-hmm.
homebody stratosphere became something that really took off. And the person who was in my position before, Kyle Post, dreamy human that he is, needed help. So they came to me and asked if I could do part time from home,
Yep.
kind of helping with the sales department. And it was just awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. I never expected to enjoy a job where I sat at a desk, to enjoy a job where I sold anything. um, but MFF makes it so easy, and the people here make it so wonderful. And then Kyle decided he wanted to follow his dreams in a completely different career path and wanted to go learn about horticultural
Yeah.
adventuring.
He's crushing
Um,
it with the plants
he
now.
sure
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So I got offered his position, and at first I thought, no, you guys are crazy. Like, I'm not, what? I don't know what I'm doing. um, and I said yes, and here I am a year and a half later, and I've just truly loved it. The amount
Yeah.
of growth I've experienced, the amount I've learned. I think you and Mark are both really excellent at recognizing that you can find the right person for the job and really teach them what needs to be done as long as they have the passion and interest. And I think I'm a prime example of that. Like, I
Mm.
had no idea what I was doing when I started, and now I wanted to learn so much and I was encouraged to learn so much, and the resources were made available to me that I'm just like, I feel so good at this now. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for those kudos. And you're right. You are the perfect example of hiring someone for the right energy and personality and attitude and someone who's interested in learning and developing a new skill set. And, Mark and I were always, since day one of working with you, we always turn to each other. We're like, My God, Emily Moore is this fucking sponge. Like she's just so eager. So you're a dream in that way. I mean, and so many of our listeners listening who you know this, developing, your own team. That's what we all want with the people we work with. Is someone who's just really eager to level up and learn. And so yeah, so thank you for being that for us. It's been pretty magical. Um, Before we jump into what we're going to walk through today, dear listeners, is kind of the overview of MFF sales process. Before we do that, I want to maybe just kind of connect the dots because I don't think it's true that anyone can jump into sales and in a year and a half like you be as good at it as you. You came with a few other tools in your toolbox. And I specifically think the acting and performing piece of this is a huge part of it. So I don't want to spend the whole podcast on this because I think we probably could. But you just talk a little bit about how all those tools that you came with helped you be good at sales.
Yeah, you're dead right. The acting and the performing is a huge part of what sales is. I
Hmm.
mean, MFF, it's easy because I do genuinely believe in what we're selling and
Of
believe
course.
in what we're doing. But if I didn't, it would still be kind of easy because of acting.
Hmm.
The whole point in connecting to people and
Hmm.
seeing how people react and being able to react to them in sales conversations and being able to mirror their energy is all like basic freshman level acting skills.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
sales scripts are a huge part of sales. You just can't sell anything if you don't know what to say. And having scripts that are memorized, knowing if someone says this, I need to say this, having all of the things there, tools wise, was a lot
Mm,
easier for me because of memorizing scripts for acting.
yeah.
Even in a cold reading situation where you like go to an audition and they say, oh, that was really great, we'd actually like you to read for this other part really quickly.
Hmm.
You have 5 minutes in the hallway to look at this other script and then come in and try to be a human with that.
Right.
That kind of stuff really prepared
Yeah.
me for sales.
Yeah. It's so right. I mean, because so much of sales is memorizing a script, but not being a robot, being able to bring your own personality and life to it, being responsive to other people in the moment, right? Don't they say acting is mostly reacting or
Yeah,
something like that?
and
Yeah.
so is sales. I mean,
Yeah.
talking about people's fitness goals is really
Hmm.
deep, and you have to be able to listen and respond well to that. But also, when people get uncomfortable talking about money, you have to be able
Yeah.
to respond to that, react to that like a human.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well, I appreciate that because I think for our listeners, what I want them to take away is you can look for people who have sales experience, but you can also look for people who have these kinds of skill sets, right? They come already with this toolbox from something else they've done in their lives, and that kind of toolbox of being great at responding to people, learning scripts, being authentic in the moment, being a great listener. Those are the things that ultimately make you a good salesperson. We can teach the rest, but you came with so much of that ready to go, which is why a year and a half in you're incredible at this. And so, yeah, thank you for that backstory. Let's dive in. Let's kind of walk chronologically, just kind of a high level through the MFF sales process, because we get asked a lot about how we handle sales. And so maybe just start with where do most of our leads come from these days?
Yeah, I mean, people have to find you before they can buy,
Yep.
so
Come to find
definitely.
out. They need to know you exist
Yeah,
first. Yeah.
I've heard of you. I mean, as I mentioned, to be in the theater world in New York is to know
Hmm.
MFF. So, right out of the gate, I think a great way to start with any fitness industry is find your niche, find out who your members surround themselves with, where they go, what they do. For us, it was theater people. So, we have a tendency to just kind of inception other theater people. A lot of the time, when people come here and I first say, how did you find out about MFF? They go, I don't know. I've just always known about it. I mean, I do theater. Oh, okay.
Hmm. Yep.
So I would definitely recommend just kind of picking the brains of your top members, finding out what they do, where they go, where they come from, and hitting up people just like them. And then, the
Yeah.
traditional meta stuff, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we're diving into that a little bit, as well as having the funnel on our website, just like a call to action on the website. Right now, ours is a low barrier offer, but we're actually thinking about changing it to chat with a coach.
Hmm.
So rather than clicking on something to buy it, it's just like chat with someone right away. We're going to kind of test that out. We also have done direct mail. You can
Hmm.
literally find companies to pull addresses from everybody near you, even under within a certain like income parameters. Um, we have QR codes that we give
Hmm.
out. Um, Of course, referrals, big time referrals. There's different ways to do that. There's different ways to be great at it. It's always a weird thing, but we can talk about that.
Yeah.
And then, guerrilla marketing stuff. For us, we have a tendency to be weirder. So we go out in unicorn onesies and walk around the neighborhood and talk to people and get them interested in working out with us. But for a lot of people, wrapping a car in your logo and having signage out front is really important. And just being visible, I think,
Yeah.
is
Showing
the
up at
number
the
one thing.
farmers markets or the local 5K or the, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important. The first thing you said is really critical is that if you don't know who your niche is, if you're not building a reputation amongst the existing community or type of person, then you probably have too many directions you're going in. And for us, it's not like we only serve theater folks, but it's kind of the whole place. We want to make sure that we have a really solid reputation. And then from there, listeners, as you heard from Em, there's a laundry list of things that we're always trying. We always have several poles in the water for different ways to generate leads. Some of them are technological with paid ads, some of it's organic, some of it's referrals, some of it's getting past members back, some of it's grassroots, guerrilla, local community, pounding the pavement. But we're always experimenting with a handful of things to see what's going to get the best traction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just kind of anything else to add to that before we move on?
No, I think you nailed it. I would
Yeah.
just recommend you never
Mm.
want to have only one line in the water.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
multiple things, and marketing is always just tests, test,
Yeah,
test, tests.
and that's a hard part. I mean, obviously, we're a slightly bigger team than probably most of the gyms that are listening to this podcast. So we have the ability, because we also have some external support through marketing help and things, and so we have the ability to maybe put more poles in the water than some of you, dear listeners. But still, one is probably never the answer. Two or three is probably the sweet spot for most of you. Anything more than that is probably going to just be overwhelming. You don't have the capacity for it. But you always want to be testing, so you're not putting all your chips on one number. Is that like a gambling analogy? I think it is. I'm going to go with it.
Gambling
Yeah,
and fishing simultaneously.
yeah, it is. We're weave them all together. All right. Well, then let's talk about. So once a lead gets generated. So for us, that means we've captured a name, phone number, and email. And let's just talk about kind of the most common ways. So most common would be like through our website or through an ad, a paid ad to a landing page. Talk me a little bit about where does the sales process kick in? What happens next?
Yeah, before I get there, I also just want
Hmm.
to add Instagram DMs.
Oh, sure.
That's super hot. People definitely reach out to us through Instagram. So you
Great.
definitely want to make sure you have a link tree thing on your Instagram where you have someone, being able to get to your website, but also having someone DMing back and
Mm,
forth. We work hard to make sure anytime somebody likes our stuff, we hit them up. Anytime someone is a new follower, we hit them up. And it's just a great way to add people into the bucket, into the
yeah.
leads. But
Great
yes, so
addition. Yeah.
yeah, so they're here. They've given us their information. Next, we just don't leave them alone. um, Mark is definitely of the belief, and we've got proof that it works. That unless people are pushing you away and saying you are really, really annoying, you're not doing enough.
Hmm.
So we call them, we text them, we email them a lot.
Yeah.
It
And
can,
what's the current cadence? Like how long, how often?
Yeah, so from the moment someone clicks and we get their information, I work really hard to call them within 5 minutes. Um, and for our team, we have like a drop what you're doing policy unless you're talking to a ninja, a member.
Sure.
But like if someone came in while we were having this interview, I'd be like, I gotta go. Because it's proven that if you can get to them within the first 5 minutes of them clicking, they're still there, they're still
Hmm.
interested, they know what happened.
Yep.
After that, they're immediately much colder. So there's also an instant text and an instant email that goes out from the moment they click. So hopefully within the first 5 to 6 minutes, they've heard from me in every possible way.
Hmm.
And then after that, we call a second time on the first day.
Hmm.
We send a second text on the first day. For us, we've um, uh, auditioned a couple of different things for that second text.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can just send a second text that's like, hey, just checking in. Is this Michael? I just want to make sure I have the right number.
Yep.
That did well for a while. And now we just send a cute GIF. Or GIF. I don't know what's
Yeah.
correct anymore.
Either way.
But it's just a unicorn farting through the sky, and it's
Great.
and it
Fantastic.
says cute, adorable things. Um, And then the next day we call again. So we call for 3 days in a row. The first day
Mhm.
we call twice, and then we call 3 days in a row. And we send a text and an email on all three of those days. And then we back off a little bit. We just send text and emails for the next, I think, 3 or 4 days. And then we call
Mhm.
again on day 7.
Mhm.
And then we call again on day 14.
Got
And
it.
after that 2 week time, they go into an automated cold follow up where they just get text and emails from us every couple of weeks. They're in our regular marketing swirl pool of things that come from Mark or just everything we offer. Um, you know, real talk, like calling people works and doesn't work at the same time. you
Yeah,
know,
of
the
course.
the sooner you can call them, the more it works, which is why we call twice on the first day.
Yep.
But it's 2023.
Mhm.
Listeners, how many people don't answer the phone when they don't recognize the phone number? And then you get a voicemail and you realize it's somebody you called and you just block the number. So, it's getting harder and harder with calls. So the sooner you can call, definitely the better.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think for listeners, a lot of people listening, like, wow, that's a lot of follow up. And so talk to me a little bit about how you and and your team kind of have gotten used to that level of follow up. Because I know that a lot of Unicorn Society members I talk to, some that you've probably talked to as well, you know a lot of them, they're resistant to that idea of like being annoying. They think they're just being annoying or being overwhelming. How do you and your team get over that sensation?
Yeah, great question. It's hard because you think about it from your own personal,
Hmm.
acceptance of like, if somebody called me this much, I would probably be annoyed. But the truth is, it takes somewhere between 11 and 14 touches to get for someone to buy a thing. And they gave you their information.
Yeah.
They clicked because there's something deep inside their soul that they need help with.
Yep.
You're their guide. They want help. They wouldn't have clicked if they didn't want help. You're reaching out to help them. So at the end of the day, I remind myself I'm not annoying. And sometimes even the messages I leave, I say, "Hey, Michael, this is M from Mark Fisher Fitness again. I in no way mean to be annoying. I just know that you clicked on learning about our workouts and I want you to feel supported. I want you to know I'm here. And sometimes you click on a thing and you're left all by yourself and you never hear from anyone, but I'm a human and I would love to help you get started working out."
Yeah. I would call you back. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a kind of message that I think we all feel in our hearts, but it's hard to embody that every day in the work. And I actually, when I talk people through this, I explain how easy it seems to me in my regular life to ignore people. I ignore calls and from people I don't want to talk to, texts, emails. I mean, how many people do we know that have in their personal inboxes thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of emails? They're just ignoring. So ignoring outreach from businesses is kind of very easy. It's very easy. So it feels I rarely have the experience that a business is being annoying. I'll mostly have the experience that businesses don't communicate enough to me. I'm doing projects around my house these days, and to get a contractor to call me back and communicate what the hell is going on, I would pay so much money for them to be responsive and follow up with me every day. Try to get a paint quote. It's impossible to get someone to call you back. So I think it's rare that people are annoyed by the consistent outreach. So yeah, go
It's
ahead.
true. And honestly, if they are, the people who get the most annoyed say something.
They'll tell you. Yeah.
They say stop, they say unsubscribe, they say leave me alone, and I'm always so grateful when they do. The
Yeah.
number of people I call and text and reach out to all day long, thank you for telling me to stop. I can
Hmm.
scratch you off my list.
Please save me the
Thank you.
time. Yeah.
Now I know you're not a worthwhile lead, but
Hmm.
until you tell me you don't want to hear from me, I will keep trying because
Yeah.
you expressed interest in getting help, and that's really why I'm calling to help.
Yeah. I want to ask one more question about this 2-week follow up period, and then I want
Yeah.
to move on to the next step. But in this 2-week follow up period, you mentioned we're doing phone calls and texts and emails. And I know that almost all of that is very scripted. And you gave some examples of what some of the texts sound like. Can you give me some examples of what some of this outreach sounds like?
Yeah, I mean, we do our best to make everything sound human.
Mm-hmm.
And we do our best for especially the email cadence to grow and have a sense of purpose and urgency.
Mm-hmm.
So, the very first email is like, "Hey, Michael, you clicked on our trial. Here's what the trial is all about in case you forgot or you don't know what you clicked on. Hit me up and I'm happy to talk to you about it. Plus, if you finish purchasing today, there's a bonus, fast acting bonus, day one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second day they get an email that's like, ah, nuts, you missed that bonus. I'm so sorry. But don't worry, I'm still here. I'd love to chat with you. And then day three, they get one that's like, all right, I still want to get you the best deal possible. Here's a secret deal. If you buy it within the next 10 days, you get it at a discounted rate. And here's why. We really want to help you. And then the emails sort of get shorter and shorter, just like
Mm-hmm.
checking in.
Yep.
Talk to me about your fitness goals. How can I help? What's holding you back from getting started? These are all things that are somewhere, just basically 1 or 2 sentence emails.
Yep.
Um, and there's always an email somewhere in the email chain that is re something.
Mm.
Um, just
Yep.
clever tactic.
Yep. Clever tactic. If it's a reply, they'll think they're part of the conversation already. Yeah.
Correct. So I highly
Tricky.
recommend
Tricky.
that.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way, maybe it's day 5 or 6, there's an email that introduces myself and my teammate, whoever it
Mm.
is that you're in our particular follow-up thread. So it's like, hey, let me introduce myself. I'm the person who's been calling you and texting you and leaving you voicemails. You don't know anything about me. Let me tell you who I am.
Yeah. Great.
There's one of those. And then the last one says, hey, today's going to be the last day I call you.
Mm-hmm.
I in no way meant to be annoying. I just want you to know we're always here. Here's our website information, and you'll keep hearing from me. I'm not going to
Great.
disappear forever. All that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great overview. I really appreciate that because some people think too much about it, and they want to try and pack all of this content, all these emails with like tons of content and tons. And it doesn't have to be that. It's just a person trying to connect with another person, right? And so they can be
Yeah.
short. They should provide some incentive. They should try and have a sense of urgency. So that all I think is really helpful for our listeners to hear.
Oh yeah. There's a couple other things. One of them always has, don't take it from me. Here's some testimonials from people just
Mm-hmm.
like you.
Great,
Definitely highly recommend that. And then also one of them is literally just come party with us. Here's our Instagram handle.
great.
Just follow us
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So let's imagine we actually get to talk to one of these people. What happens next in the process?
Aha. So the next thing is getting them in the door.
Mm-hmm.
When I get someone on the phone, I talk to them. I try to connect to them. I ask them why they're interested in working out, what they've tried before, what hasn't worked. I explain what we do and how it can help them in the exact words that they have told me about
Mm.
what they need and what hasn't worked for them. And I really explain um, how it's different here and get them in the door. Um,
Yeah. Great.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that you really highlighted the most important part of that conversation is learn what really matters to them. What are their goals or their problems they want to solve? What do they want to achieve? And then using those exact words and information to repeat back to them how we can help them get there and how we're going to help get them there differently than maybe their experience in the past. Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's the most important part of that conversation. And that takes practice.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's hard because you're so excited about your gym space and all
Hmm.
of the shit your gym offers. You may have some rockin' machine that no one else has. You may
Yep.
offer some nutrition programming that, is like state of the art. No one has this the nutritionist on their team, but you.
Yep.
And the person calling is just like, I only want workouts.
Hmm.
So you don't need to tell them about any of that, but
Yeah.
you're so excited about what you offer and you love your place so much, you can end up talking too much about all the things they don't need. So
Yeah.
it's really important to listen to why they're here and what they're looking for
Yeah.
and make sure you explain to them how you can help them with their exact issues.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and speaking of practice, I know that you and Nathaniel practice a lot. Can you just say a little bit about how much you practice these kinds of conversations?
Yeah, so we have a 15-minute, sometimes 30-minute, because we like each other and go over all the time, um, drills session or role playing 3 days a week. And
Hmm.
then a fourth day of the week, we have like our meeting where we can talk about things that aren't working or change the script or do what's best for us. But at least 3 days a week, we are drilling.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's just so huge for our listeners to hear because most gyms will not have two full-time sales folks like the two of you. And the fact that you are both doing this full time and still need to practice, maybe I'll say need to, find the benefit in practicing 3 times per week, I think is a real lesson to our listeners, because most of them are the owners that are doing the sales conversations, the owners plus some help from another person, and they're only doing it a handful of times. Y'all are doing this full time and still find value in practicing every single week, multiple times. So I just think that's a really important lesson for our listeners to take home, that you've got to drill these conversations if you want to get good at them. And as you drill them and then apply them, you'll go back and improve the scripts and improve the
Mm.
processes over time, which I know you and your team at Nathaniel have done a ton of.
Yeah, you're right. And it is a need to. I'm
Yeah.
not because you're bad at it,
Yeah.
but to stay good at it. It's
Yeah.
just like any professional athlete. Like
Mm-hmm.
no professional basketball player is going to be like, no, I'm not coming to practice this week. I'll just show up at the game at school.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
absolutely not. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so this is just a great way to stay on top of it and to discuss with each other, like, hey, this is how our script usually goes. And for the first time ever, I had someone go off the rails with it, or like that script didn't work, and here's why. And we adjust things regularly. They're kind of
Yeah.
living documents, and we try very hard to stick to the things. And we definitely know what phrases and what MFFisms work for us. And
Great.
but you cannot wing it. You have
You
to
can't. You have to
know your
practice.
scripts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. All right. I know we're around close to the time I said we were going to go. Do you have a few more minutes to kind of finish the rest of the sales process?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
let's keep going. So let's just say we got them to come into the door, and then talk about what the process looks like next.
Yeah. So for us, once they're in the door, we do not forget them. So
Yeah.
until they become a member, they're our responsibility. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And a
we're,
typical low barrier offer for MFF these days is what?
yeah, we have a 21-day trial right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty long for a lot of gyms.
Yep.
It works for us because we do have the human power. We do have a sales department. So it's fine for us to be able to keep up with that. If you're listening and your low barrier offer is a shorter trial or just one free class or one free week or whatever, that's fucking great. It does not have to be 21 days long. Do what works for you, but you can't just let them come in, greet them at the door, and let them go forever.
Yep.
You absolutely need to have somebody there when they first come in to make them feel welcome, to make them feel like they're not lost. All of our trainers know to look at all of the copious notes that I've took, that my teammate Nathaniel took about their goals and any injury information they have, so that person right away feels well taken care of. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
heard, you've got a problem with your labor. I'm going to be helpful and give you modifications for that this whole class. Just watch me. They know they're in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also make sure that at least throughout our 21 days, we're really keeping up with them. So I have certain touch points throughout the 21 days. I reach back out to them. I always reach back out to them the day after they came in. I always
Mm-hmm.
reach back out to them after the first week,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of their 21 days as well, and then the week before they end. And part of what I do is when I have that initial conversation before they come in, I actually schedule a check-in. We call it
Great.
our check-in, Kiki. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I have two conversations with everyone who comes in the door, one before they begin and one just as they're getting towards the end of their trial. So you always want to make sure someone who's in your low barrier offer, your free week, your one free class, even whatever it is, that you really keep in contact with them. You make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they are happy. You make sure they understand how to schedule, they understand everything. For my part, I also have we have an amazing training team here. So I completely trust that they show up to class, they're having a great time, and the fulfillment aspect of the workouts and all of the fitness is taken care of. So, I don't have to worry about that. But for a lot of people listening, you might be doing both. So,
Mm-hmm.
how they did in class. Bring it up. How they did in your small group training session. Talk to them about that the day after, the day of. It can really make people feel seen.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we have that second conversation at the end where we say, okay, great, let's talk about it. If we've been on a first date.
Yeah.
Would
How
you like
long
to,
is that
would you like to
second
commit?
conversation? Yeah. Yeah.
The second conversation is usually somewhere between 25 and 40 minutes. It just depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people really really like to talk about their
Yeah.
experience. And sometimes people show up and they're like, I had a great time. What can I buy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. And are you
Great.
usually doing this in person, phone, Zoom? How you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, we in the before times of the pandemic, we did do this stuff in person, but
Mm-hmm.
now we really just do it via Google Meet. It's
Mm-hmm.
free. It's
Yep.
just so easy. It also makes it very, very high show rates. It's
Yep.
rare that people cancel, or if they do, they immediately say, "Oh my gosh, I just want to reschedule." I mean, look, people do cancel, but
Sure.
it's rarer because they can do it from their homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can do it from their phone, literally anywhere, walking down the streets of New York, for,
Yeah,
on their lunch break, right? And so, as opposed to having to meet up with them in the gym, and who knows, that might not work in every market, but I think New Yorkers love the convenience of being able to schedule an appointment where they don't have to meet someone face to face. So,
for sure.
yeah. And so, talk to me a little bit. How do we incentivize people to take the next step during that check in?
Ah, yes. Heights.
Heights. Yeah. So you
Highly,
want, yeah.
yeah, highly attractive. And wait, incentive. Wait, sorry, I'm 6 months pregnant, so remembering words sometimes is totally gone from my brain.
You're
Um,
allowed. You're allowed.
yeah, highly attractive, incentivizing, time sensitive.
Irresistible.
Irresistible, that's it.
Yeah.
Highly attractive, irresistible, time sensitive. Whoop, heights.
Yep.
So it's an offer that expires today.
Mm,
You've got to sign up today in order to get this offer. It's money off. It's a free, it's an extra workout. It just makes it really enticing and makes you want to sign up today.
mhm.
And we even have rules and parameters around that because there are the types of people who uh, were like, I cannot decide right now. I cannot decide
Mhm.
right now with you in front of me on the computer. I need to think about this. Okay, well, you can either put some money down and then come back to me and I'll refund that money if you can't, sometimes we'll tell people if you pay for it, if you give, sign up today, but set your start date to be next Tuesday and you won't pay
Mhm.
it until next Tuesday. So you still have between now and next Tuesday to think about it. But at least this way you got all of the deals, you got the heights, as it were.
Yeah.
That's one way as well to incentivize. And then we also have referral asks everywhere.
Yep.
As I mentioned with referrals before, I don't have to go into this right now. We can do a
Mhm.
whole
We'll do a whole
conversation on
podcast on
referrals.
referrals. Yeah.
Woo! But all of those touch points I mentioned through that 21 days, I ask for a referral at almost every single one of those points. And
Mm.
another sign up today incentivizing thing is if you do sign up today, I'll give you more money off by setting up friends with a free class. Or even
Yep.
if you don't sign up today, I know you loved it here, Michael, and I hate that you can't work out with us anymore. So I've got a deal. You give your friend a free class, and I'll give you one more free class. So you can at least work out here one more time.
Right.
Like,
Yep. Yeah, I think it's so critical to go in with a bag of offers that your team can play around with, right? And I know you all are very strategic about what ton we're using and when, and we really mean it. If we offer it and it has a deadline, it really has a deadline. We're not terribly squishy about it, unless there's some bizarre circumstance. And so I
yeah.
think the idea of you and your team really being clear about what's going to move the needle forward. How do we incentivize people who need a little extra time, but we want to hold our ground, right? And that is part of the art of this that requires a lot of practice.
Yeah, and a huge part of what we do, and I would highly recommend this for anyone listening, is as you're practicing your sales scripts and as you're building, whatever your heights are, your
Hmm.
coupons or what deals, just remember you're talking to a human, and people
Hmm.
do not like to be sold to.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable people will not buy anything. So I very often in my sales conversations say, like, hey, okay, we're going to get to the sales stuff, but this is totally up to you. I don't want
Yep.
you to feel pressured in any way. I'm not going to shove anything down your throat.
Yep.
I'm going to make it really easy for you to stick around because it sounds like you like it here. And I genuinely, in my bones, believe MFF can help you because that's what we fucking do. But you get to make this choice. I can't make it for you. I'm not going to force you to.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful example, Em, of how to just really de-escalate the emotions of like, oh crap, I'm getting this uncomfortable sales part where they're going to talk to me about money and try and sell me stuff and try and pressure things. That you can, diffuse that immediately by saying all the things you just said. By saying, I'm not trying to do that. You're telling me that you love it here. I want to make it as easy for you to continue as possible. And I can give you some deals. I'm going to give you as many as I can, right? And that kind of I'm on your side energy helps to
Hmm.
kind of de-escalate. And it's true, right? I mean, you used the word advocate earlier, right? That like, that's kind of what a salesperson ideally is an advocate for the person. And so, and then you embody that so beautifully. I know, your teammate Nathaniel does as well. Um, I'm going to be disciplined and pull up here. We can keep going, but it's another reason why we're gonna have you back on the podcast so we can maybe continue talking about some of the finer points of this process we didn't get to today. We can talk about referrals. We can
Mm,
talk about all a million other things. Let me think. Do I have one last question? Yeah, one last question is just, you know, I know so much of getting into sales conversations is getting yourself in the right place to make that
mm.
cold call or jump on that sales call. And so, one final wrap up question is like, how do you and Nathaniel get yourselves in that energy to like be present with people in these calls? Because that's also takes practice.
Yes, that's a great question. With the actual like strategy session, that first call
Mm,
that I have with someone who I know is coming in the door,
yeah.
I make it a practice that I am at my computer in a space like this, or, when I'm working from home at home, or even at my desk, whatever, headphones on, my computer is open, the meeting is open 5 minutes early, and I
Mm,
check every note that we have on them, every historical fact on them, if possible. If they've never been to MFF before, I will look them up on Instagram or Facebook and just like see what they look like, see what they're
mm-hmm.
interested in if I can find them you know, um, and just be ready to have that conversation with them. I also get ready with whatever notes taking thing I use when I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with someone. I don't want to be fumbling for that. And when I'm on the phone with them, or a call with them. As for the like cold calls, I set a block on my calendar that's going to be like, I'm going to make the calls from this time to this time at this point in the day. And then again later in the day because I have
Mm-hmm.
I call people twice in one day,
Yep.
and I do my best to respect that. It's things happen. I'm a human.
Yep.
Sometimes that doesn't go that way, but having the time blocked out in my schedule makes it a lot easier because then
Yeah.
I know this is what I'm going to be doing right now. There isn't anything else for me to do. I'm going to get to everything else later. And for anyone who's not done the Time Ninja course, here's a short plug for that. It's awesome. And one of the things that helped me to learn is really closing out all of the tabs that have
Mm,
notifications and pop ups
yep.
while I'm making those calls.
Yeah. Well said. I think it's a great list because I think there's a lot of listeners to this are thinking, well, I can't do all the things that Em and Nathaniel are doing. We don't have two full-time people doing sales. I can't do all this follow-up. And I think that you sharing that that's what your prep looks like means that anyone listening can start with just one or two of those blocks of time per week. Right? That you just start somewhere with dedicating time to reaching out to leads, following up people in your trial, having conversations with them, right? Whatever your capacity is in this moment, start there and make sure that you can be fully present in those conversations in all the ways that Em just mentioned. So thank you for that, Em. Um,
Mm.
if our listeners want to learn more about Mark Fisher Fitness, or I know people can work with you as well. Em also does sales coaching through Business for Unicorns. And so if you want to, if they want to find you or reach out to you, Em, how do they find you and learn more about MFF?
Yeah, I am Emily at markfisherfitness.com.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah, love it. And I encourage you all, if you haven't yet, follow us on the gram, follow or get into TikTok, so get into that scene.
Hmm.
And if you want to, join subscribe to our email list and things like that to see the kind of communications we send out to everyone. I will ask you not to jump into our actual lead generation landing pages just to see what M does. But you can join the rest. You can join the rest and you can, hire Emily as a coach if you and your team need some extra help working through your sales processes, practicing your sales scripts. Thank you so much for doing this, Em. I so appreciate it. I know your time is valuable, and I think this was hugely valuable to our listeners. So I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And truly, I love talking about it. I love helping people because, as I mentioned when I first started, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah.
So, to find to have had people in my career who have helped, to have found resources that taught me things is really how I got to where I am. So I absolutely love helping people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a promise, listeners. We will have M back. And listeners, if you love this episode, let me know. Leave us a 5-star review everywhere you listen. Email me, Michael at businessunicorns.com, and let me know who you want me to talk to next or what you want me to talk about. And thanks so much for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, M.
Bye.